Get ready, people. This ain't gonna be a pleasant one. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Beerus and Whis. Quite arguably, the two most popular characters to have come out of the Dragon Ball Renaissance, which began in 2013 with, of course, the Battle of Gods movie. Things began with a literal bang, him trying to find out the Super Saiyan God to challenge the Super Saiyan God, and us actually seeing the Super Saiyan God. Quite possibly one of the most refreshing things to have happened to the franchise in over 30 years. And speaking of 30 years, that's how long Beerus took a catnap for to try and figure it out. And really, that was just a small thing in comparison to what Beerus can do. Usually he can spend a couple of centuries completely comatose, but now that he's up, it doesn't seem like he's going to be going back to bed for the foreseeable future because he's too popular. And now that I think about it, that was a really good mechanic. If people didn't like Beerus, he could just go back to sleep and we would never hear from him again. But no, he's gonna be up. The marketing department aren't gonna allow him to go back to bed. Thanks to Beerus and Whis though, it really opened everything up for Dragon Ball in a sense of scope, and it allowed us to really think about the show in a different way. The franchise was now much bigger. All of this thanks to the fact that there are now 12 universes to explore, including Universe 7, as was a whole new tier of gods. You got gods of destruction, you got their attendants, the angels, and then of course the new bigwig, because we always have to have a new bigwig, in the form of the Omni King or Zeno. It was a vital shot in the arm for the franchise, because if we didn't have that, then really things would have been a lot more stale. What would have happened if one certain action never took place? All of the actions that would have been undertaken after Beerus woke up would have been undone, or more accurately, not been done at all. What if Beerus, the destroyer of beds, never woke up? Yes, I know it doesn't sound like a particularly exciting or gripping scenario, a character not getting out of bed, but think about it here. Think of the ramifications that could occur if this guy did not interact with the cast and crew of Dragon Ball. Beerus, when he's awake, runs amok, and when he's asleep, people run amok without him recognizing it. So, no matter where you are in Universe 7, things are going to be a little bit precarious. You think that things would be okay with Whis present, but he's not a god of destruction. He's just there to act upon Beerus' wishes, and with Beerus out of commission, he's not really got anything to do. Let's suppose that Beerus never had the epiphany of the Super Saiyan God 39 years ago, after he destroyed planet Vegeta because the Saiyans had bugged him for the very last time, and he was gonna do something about it. In the fact that he would get Frieza to do it for him because he couldn't be bothered because he had a really important catnap to get to. With that done, Beerus' calendar, at least in his mind, is completely clear, so he's got nothing to do for the next couple of centuries, so why don't you get in a short kip, eh? You know, go spend a few hundred years in bed. Just see what happens afterwards, if there's anything interesting to eat or destroy. You know, those kind of the two things that he does. Little did he or Whis know that him choosing to stay in bed would have disastrous or really life-changing results for the main cast of characters within Dragon Ball. So let's start off with our idea of what might happen given the circumstances. Well, one thing's for sure, the Battle of Gods arc wouldn't take place at all because there's no Battle of Gods to be had. Its main antagonist is busy getting some beauty sleep. Admittedly, this does mean that we get a little bit more time in terms of peace, and really there's no endangerment of the planet Earth because we don't really experience anything to do with the puddingless Beerus when he's in a bit of a temper tantrum. For now, everything's fine and everything is just the way it was. However, things begin to get a bit hairy when you go into the next arc that happened, and it involves, yes you guessed it, Frieza. With Goku and Vegeta training all day, it doesn't mean that they've been sitting on their butts all day because the Battle of Gods arc never took place. They were doing something, but the trouble was though, they weren't discovering new transformations because as far as they were concerned, Super Saiyan 3 was the pinnacle of transformations that any Saiyan could reach. And we all know the whole story with Vegeta not doing Super Saiyan 3 because he found it pointless. And besides, Goku only uses it as a last resort anyway. It all begins with the remnants of Frieza's forces going to Earth to gather their Dragon Balls. Well, I mean, I say gather, it's more like they just steal them from the Pilaf gang at the best possible moment for them. You know, opportunistic and all. You know, screams of Frieza. And they then wish for their master to be revived, but then they don't really think about the way they phrase the wish because then the bits of Frieza are around in all their gory detail, and I must admit when I first saw that in the movie, it was really, really funny. And kind of accurate, it does make you think. Actually, yeah, it's like the monkey's paw effect. Granted, but your master's in bits in this world. Frieza is then regenerated with the regeneration tank because they then suddenly have it, and then sets his sights on revenge against the Saiyans that wronged him and put him in that other realm in the first place where he had to endure such harsh punishments as dancing and singing. However, this doesn't mean that Frieza gets away scot-free, because with Goku and Vegeta in this current reality, or in this section of the universe, it means that they're aware of Frieza's power suddenly reappearing. The whole thing that kept it a surprise for Goku and Vegeta was that they were in Beerus' place, and it is extremely hard to sense energy whilst you're at Beerus' place. So that means that they were kept out of the loop until the very last minute of the arcs. They were there for the end game. It took Gohan letting out all his energy at once for Goku to be able to get a hold of him, and then instant transmission back to them in time. So now having them on Earth, or at least at King Kai's place where they can actually quickly and easily communicate, things are a little bit more transparent. And I think Goku would be on Earth more of the time, so they would sense that something's gonna go on, but what are they gonna do? Currently, Frieza's power isn't anything to really write home about, he's not really much of a threat, so, you know, let's just wait and see what he does. But in the meantime, they just do simple training. No new MacGuffins to be had, no Super Saiyan God or Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Blue. You know, they've got none of that. They've just gonna be doing more of the same. So after 4 months of training, I'm still very confused and bewildered it took that little time for him to train up to that power. He is ready to take on planet Earth with his battalions. For the most part, the first segment of the fight and the action, the 1,000 Soldier Battle, takes place the same as it does in the anime and the movie. The remnants of the Z Fighters then take them on relatively easily, and it does provide some really cool action. And then of course Frieza has to step in to show who's boss, and it then results in Piccolo taking the fall for Gohan, being dispatched, and then Gohan pretty much being ridiculed and tortured and injured. Yeah, that's how it's gonna go. It does leave him pretty banged up, and Goku and Vegeta have to pick up the pieces, or at least try to. They are actually quite surprised with how much stronger Frieza's final form has gotten. Why would they be surprised, Masako? Well, if you think about it, Gohan at that point was weaker than he was in his prime, but I still believe that his Super Saiyan power would have been stronger than Goku's Super Saiyan power during the Namek Saga. Alas though, Gohan was considerably injured and he has to be taken out of the firing line, and Goku then has to do his job for him. At first, things look pretty straightforward. Goku and Final Form Frieza are pretty much level pegging. Things are going pretty much the same as they were in the anime. It looks quite spectacular, but nothing altogether too threatening. At least for a time. Because Frieza is toying with Goku, playing around with his food, and it's slowly becoming clear to Goku that something's up. He's now struggling to keep up because Frieza's just turning up the wick, and then Goku has to do what he didn't think he'd have to do, and go Super Saiyan. He then does take the advantage back, then Frieza takes back the reins again because he goes, oh ho ho monkey, I can go golden too. With that, Frieza lets out all of his power to see because he likes to show off, and then we get Golden Freeza. This is shown off for the very first time, and it becomes extremely clear to Goku and Vegeta that its power is immense, and nothing that they have could get anywhere near close enough to beat it. I mean, can Super Saiyan 3 do something against it? Well, they gotta find out. Goku then powers up to Super Saiyan 3, and Vegeta has to step in with Super Saiyan 2. Can those two do the job? Nope! The thing about it is that Super Saiyan 3 can do the job for a very short period of time because, as we all know, Super Saiyan 3's biggest Achilles heel is all to do with stamina. And yes, Goku may have been doing a bit more training, but that stamina bug is still there. It just is slightly delayed than it was in the Buu saga. But it's clear that the only reason that Goku can keep up is that Vegeta's in there with Super Saiyan 2 mastered, keeping Frieza at a somewhat distance, meaning that Goku can try and focus and get things done as soon as he can. Back in the original, when Goku had Super Saiyan Blue, the whole thing about Super Saiyan Blue was that it drained a lot of power when you transformed into it, but once you got into it, it was relatively low in terms of energy output. It was quite efficient once you got into it, just the startup sequence was the issue. It means that the whole thing with Frieza's energy drain is nowhere near as detrimental. Goku's making more and more mistakes, and Frieza's making it very clear that he's making these mistakes, and Vegeta's doing his best to try and keep things on a level playing field, enough for Frieza to slowly lose his energy, and then him take him out, because Vegeta's energy output is much more controllable. Ultimately though, Frieza is able to make the big turning point, and then just slam Goku down with all of his might, knocking him out. And that leaves Vegeta completely wide open to Frieza's full power. The only thing going for Vegeta is that Frieza isn't at 100% power, but it's still more than 2. Frieza is in his element. Everything is going his way. He can sense the balance of power going his way. The oh-ho-hos are intense here. So with that, Frieza decides to nip things in the bud while he still can, and pulls out his finishing move, the Earthbreaker. Of course, he's got to do a very satisfying speech saying to Goku and Vegeta, "I have to thank you, monkeys. Without your excessive meddling in my affairs, I wouldn't have reached this other power that I thought impossible. You've opened up a whole new avenue of life for me. Thank you." He lets off the ball and everything on Earth is destroyed, including the remnants of his forces. Masako? Isn't that bad for Frieza? To a normal villain, yes, it would be a very, very dumb move because you just wiped out all of your artillery and your military. But this is Frieza we're talking about here, so there are 2 things to consider. First, he can breathe in space, so he's totally fine. And secondly, would he even care? He has no attachment to these men. They're just a means to an end for his own personal gain, and he can always just get more. The forces are just window dressing at this point, or, better for him, means that they can do all the work for him and he can just kick back with a glass of rosé and just take in all of this new domination that he thought he lost forever. Frieza has finally been able to dominate against the 2 Saiyans that thwarted his galactic dominance that he thought he deserved. These 2 are finally bested, and if you've been going at this for the better part of 2 decades, oh, you're gonna feel good, and oh, you're gonna do anything possible for it to be achieved. He can go back to his normal ways of making people's lives miserable and just getting more and more powerful and all the more rich. Unfortunately for our heroes, there is no Whis Ex Machina to help them because Whis isn't around or really in their favor, so there's no time rewind here. They're pretty much gone. So now what? What happens now, Masako? Tell us. Well, 2 things could happen. Either nothing happens at all, and everybody watches on as Frieza reasserts his dominance upon Universe 7 once again, maybe even more effectively, or action is taken via the Otherworld with the Supreme Kai's help. They could call upon the Namekians to use the Namekian Dragon Balls to wish Earth back as well as its people, but who's to say that Frieza wouldn't just come back and destroy it again, and it would just be a vicious cycle? Or, what's to say that Frieza doesn't discover new Namek and then blow it up again just for giggles? In this case, Beerus not waking up means that life is much harder for Dragon Ball Super timelines for the good guys, and much easier for Frieza. You know, since there's no God of Destruction getting in his way. And with Beerus asleep, he is now effectively the strongest being in the universe. And that's where we're gonna leave things. So, really, suffice to say, Beerus being asleep is absolutely terrible for the sake of the plot progression, at least given what we know in the original story. It's quite clear in this new era of Dragon Ball, Beerus' presence, especially at the beginning of it, is absolutely critical. Without him or Whis, things would have been drastically cut short, so good thing that didn't happen. So what do you guys think? Did you like this unorthodox what if? Was it a bit too negative for your liking? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!